Have you ever picked up a fallen book and noticed something strange? When it happened to me, a message appeared on one of the pages. Today was an utterly ordinary day. I got home later than I'd planned. Work had dragged on as usual. Tossing my jacket aside and taking off my shoes, I glanced at the wall clock. Midnight. The empty apartment greeted me with silence, and I even felt a bit relaxed. But as soon as I closed the door, I heard it. A rustling sound, barely perceptible, like someone had walked across the carpet in the next room. My heart skipped a beat, but I told myself it was just the wind and went to the bedroom. The book I had left on the table in the morning was now on the floor. I must have dropped it myself, I thought, but something inside me persisted. A strange sense of presence filled the room. I froze for a moment, looking around. The empty bedroom looked the same as always. The neatly made bed, a few books on the nightstand, the slightly open wardrobe. But something was off. I decided not to dwell on it and went to the bathroom to take a shower. Hot water usually helped me relax after a long day, but today was different. As soon as I turned on the water and stepped under the stream, I thought I heard a sound as if someone was moving cautiously behind the door. I froze. At first I thought it was just the noise of the water, but when the sound repeated, a cold fear slid down my spine. It's just your imagination, I tried to reassure myself. After a few minutes of absolute silence, I finished my shower. Wrapping myself in a towel, I returned to the bedroom, where I felt that strange sensation again, like someone was watching me. I looked around the room once more, no signs that anyone had been there. But the feeling of unease didn't go away. My eyes were drawn again to the book on the floor. I picked it up and put it back on the table, noticing that the cover was slightly worn. Sighing, I headed to bed, trying to convince myself it was just exhaustion. Maybe my insomnia was acting up again, but as soon as I turned off the light, everything around me seemed even more sinister. The darkness in the room felt thicker, filling every corner. I lay on the bed but couldn't fall asleep. At first, I thought it was due to the overwhelming workday projects, stress. It could all be taking a toll on my state. However, the rustling I heard again made me tense. It was light, almost imperceptible, but definitely not the wind. I sat up abruptly, scanning the darkness. There was nothing unusual in the room, but the sensation of being watched became unbearable. Anxiety gripped me. I even got up and walked through the apartment, checking doors and windows. Everything was locked as it should be, but that cold fear inside wouldn't let go. I returned to the bedroom and lay down again, hoping I could fall asleep despite the unease. Closing my eyes, I tried to shut out the world, but suddenly I heard the rustling again. This time it was clearer, closer, as if someone was creeping around the room, trying not to be seen. My heart pounded harder and I opened my eyes again, listening intently. Silence. Absolute silence, which seemed even more ominous than the sound itself. Something wouldn't let me relax, and giving in to fear, I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. Illuminating the corner of the room, I almost held my breath, preparing to see something strange, but in the phone's light there was nothing. Furniture, a bookshelf with books, a painting on the wall, all in their places. I sat there for another 10 minutes, listening to the silence, but the rustling didn't repeat. Then I decided it was really just exhaustion and began to calm myself down. Turning off the light, I lay back down but could no longer close my eyes. Something inside me was tensed and wouldn't let me sleep. About an hour passed and fatigue finally began to take over as I started drifting off. In a half-dream, I heard a faint sound like someone whispering my name. Eric. It was a barely audible voice, so soft it could easily be mistaken for a trick of the imagination. But at that moment, I snapped awake, filled with dread. Who could say my name in an empty apartment? I sat up in bed, now fully awake. At that moment, everything inside me told me I had to get up and check everything again, but I couldn't force myself out of bed. I sat there, surrounded by darkness, thinking it was just a dream, but something about the whisper made it feel too real. I sat still, trying to calm down. A few more minutes passed when I heard it again. Now the sound was clearer. The whisper was coming from somewhere in the corner of the room where my wardrobe stood. Eric. It came again, quietly, almost imperceptibly, but now I was certain it wasn't my imagination. At some point I realized I couldn't ignore it any longer. I got up, found my phone by touch, and turned on the flashlight again. Lighting up the room, I moved toward the wardrobe. Every step was difficult. My legs seemed to refuse to move. When I got closer, I heard a new sound, a soft tapping, like someone gently knocking from inside the wardrobe. I froze. My inner voice was literally screaming at me not to come any closer, but I was too frightened to just leave. Grabbing the handle, I slowly opened the wardrobe door. Inside, there was nothing unusual. Clothes hung as always, but it didn't bring any relief. I slowly scanned the shelves with the flashlight, and then my heart stopped. On one of the shelves lay a book that I definitely hadn't put there. I didn't remember having it in the house at all. My hands trembled as I picked it up and opened it. The pages were blank, completely blank sheets of paper. But as I flipped through a few pages, a message appeared on one of them as if it had materialized right before my eyes. "You're not alone." I dropped the book and stumbled back against the wall. The whisper grew louder, coming from everywhere. It seemed like the voice was all around me, in the walls, in the air, in every corner of the room. I couldn't stay there. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and tried to call a friend, but the phone screen flickered and went dark. The phone was dead. Panic overwhelmed me. I grabbed my jacket and ran out of the apartment, barely putting on my shoes. The night was quiet and deserted, and the cold air slapped my face, bringing me back to reality. But the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave me. I got into my car and started the engine, trying to get as far away from the place as quickly as possible. After driving a few blocks, I stopped at a 24-hour cafe to calm down and think about what to do next. But even in the car, I didn't feel safe. It seemed like the whisper continued to follow me, trailing behind me. I looked over my shoulder, but the car was empty. Yet inside me, the feeling grew that this wasn't the end. That night changed everything. I no longer felt safe in my own home.